the sea of Fallout. Roughly a third of the map is water. It seems like it would be a wasted opportunity if nothing was ever truly done with it. Much like the many mountains in Skyrim not having anything on them and filling up a large portion of the map, will Fallout 4 follow the same path, or has Bethesda been giving us hints to the game's underwater future? As always, I'm Levon, and today we're going to be talking about why not only do I think we'll see an underwater content in Far Harbor, but we'll also see underwater combat and a possible ghoul, whale, or giant squid in May. Let's start simple first because I know there are people out there wondering, why do people keep talking about underwater content and underwater combat in Fallout 4? So first off, why the content? First off, you have the sphere underwater. It has an advertisement on it for Nuka Cherry Cola. It's the only model of it in the game, and it's found here at the bottom of the ocean. You can't even read the advertisement on it yet, but what you can see is part of the logo. So we were given just enough to catch our interest and to peek it just a little bit further. Pipes. All the pipes in the world are down here now. Most speculate that these pipes were once part of a much larger structure that was swallowed up by the sea after the Great War. While they do connect to reservoir and certain breweries around the Commonwealth, they also connect to Nahant, which we'll get to next. They also have hatches in them that lead to nowhere, much like the pipe when you first enter the Institute. The Nahant Oceanological Society. If you go to the south side of Nahant, it has a cord running from it. This cord will traverse two different pipes that both lead to the same area, the pumps, as it has been deemed by the community. These cords lead to various lights on the pumps and connects them to the main light of each pump. But why is that important, you ask? Why wouldn't a hunt want power supplied to it, and specifically to these pumps, when it is empty besides a couple of Codsworth robots lurking around the society? Well, it's important to the Institute. If you go to the biolab of the Institute, you'll find a terminal, and it reads, "What to create. We've engineered creatures that inhabit the sky and land. The next logical step is a creature of the sea." Might Nahant have something useful? Note to self, request that we allocate a scavenger team to that area. So Nahant is now connected to the Institute, and with wanting their research in creating an underwater life form. And just if you're curious about those flying creatures, the only animals that we see flying around are those crows and seagulls in the game. It would be kind of creepy if the Institute was creeping on everyone Odin style, like from the Avengers. Now, we've all seen this next part, unless you just don't go on the internet at all in regards to Fallout. And it's that harpoon gun. You know, the harpoon gun that modders found. It was completely blank, so they retextured it and actually gave it some color besides it just being pale white. But when you shoot it, it has bubble effects. So that signifies that it was supposed to be shot underwater. And it does function like the railway gun in the game. It just shoots those spikes right out. But what animals could you actually shoot underwater with that harpoon gun, you ask? Well, I wouldn't imagine that you would jump right into fighting a whale or a giant squid. That's why these mutated dolphins come into play. It's a nice subtle Easter egg that references our future. Even though at the moment they have no AI attached to them, it doesn't change the fact when you shoot them, well, it does this. Harpoon to the gut, anyone? But come on, Levon, we've already seen and heard the majority of what you've already talked about. What about that giant whale and that giant squid you keep rambling on about? When are you going to talk about that? Well, here we go. I'll tell you, or rather, two separate NPCs can. This caravaner in Bunker Hill, and not just will the caravaner in Bunker Hill, but so will any old guard in Diamond City. It can be a chore to get them to talk about it. I was only able to get the caravaner to talk about the Ghoul well for just a moment, and it wasn't the full bit. There was even more to it. But the part about what she says is an old tale about her grandfather encountering the Ghoul whale and how badly it scared him. The whale is even named by her. She says that he called it Old Peg. Yep, the whale has a name. Obviously, with a name like Old Peg, we're dealing with a Moby Dick Easter egg. First off, the whale is told of legend from an old man who gave it its name, Old Peg. Ahab from Moby Dick loses his leg to a great white whale and uses a peg leg during the duration of the book. I've never read the book, but a part of me hope he whittles Old Peg into it at some point. Number 2. The boats in Fallout aren't that far from the boats that were used during the early 1900s when they were going off whaling. 3. It's a giant whale with a mythical origin being a ghoul. I don't have anything really else to put into it. It's the only famous whale, except for Pearl. And I haven't seen the Krusty Krab underwater. And ending on 2 is just anticlimactic. I even went so far as to think the buoys in the game would lead me to something. So I rang all of the boys in various orders. Sadly, after all of that, the buoys never brought forth a giant whale. I still believe this was supposed to be used at some point to bring about the whale. An even more sad note on the Ghoul whale, after talking to the PC community, the people who do the modding in the game, it doesn't seem to be any whale textures in the game. I did, however, get a message yesterday from a Bob4786. He sent me 2 screenshots, as you'll see here, from using the Fallout 4 edit program to peer into the game's files. Here he found 2 mentions of the whale. The mammal is seen causing 2 separate explosions in the game. But what about the squid, Lavon? The squid, that giant thing that we've seen the artwork from the collector's edition of the game to other references in the game. Well, like you said, if you were lucky enough to get one of the collector's editions, then you saw our next part. The art book itself shows you various pictures of underwater content, one of which is a squid. And also, Mama Murphy used to have a sweet ass hovering chair that looks like they ripped it apart just a couple of cods worth to achieve that feat. We also have a cut quest that was in the game, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which of course features a giant squid that attacks a submarine, much like we have in the game. The quest was indeed cut, but we still have remnants of it in the game, like the starter point that was near the sub in the game. I'm not sure if this was fan art, even though it does look like the quest starter pictures that they give you, those little animated few second snippets every time you pick up a new quest, but it does come from a notable source off of Fallout 4 wiki. And what it shows us is the Vault Boy in an underwater area, and then we see a alive mutated dolphin behind him. Then we see... Wait. What was that? In the bottom. Zoom in on that a little bit. Does that thing have eyes? That's what nightmares are made of. Sadly, no one calls the squid by any crazy names. But what we do have is texture files from the game that show off a squid. Not only does it show off a squid, it shows off a mechanical texture for that squid. I don't think we saw anyone, or we will see anyone catching a giant squid, fitting it with armor, and then re-releasing it back into the wild, just for shits and giggles, I guess. That would seem odd even for the Fallout universe, but what I do think is that the squid is in fact the Institute's water creature that it started working on with the research from Nahant. But what about Far Harbor? When does that come into it? Well, Bethesda showed us off 2 screenshots. Well, one screenshot, one was just artwork. The artwork shows both the lone survivor, or lone wanderer rather, and Dogmeat on a boat heading to an island. An island, which is probably a whaling island, I would imagine. They even say that the island is a distance. It is a ways away from the Commonwealth. And here in the second screenshot that they showed us, you can even see bones. Bones of a very large creature. At first, I thought this left portion over here was just a fence sticking out of the ground a little bit. But then, as you move further to the right, you can see rib cage right there. And if it wasn't for this little bit of debris to the far right, I imagine there's a head there at the start of a skull, and then the rest of it is underwater. You can also see a second one of these directly behind it. As well as to the far left, you can see the mutated dolphin. It, to me, seems like a small Easter egg that they give us very early on to show us, hey, not only do we see the remnants of a ghoul whale, but we've also talked to you about a whale in the game so far. So that to me is a nod that we will see the ghoul whale later in May during the release of Far Harbor. But the showing of the mutated dolphin in the left to me says there will be combat of some sort. Because not only does it show the dolphin, but it shows it with its stomach blown out. Lastly, to end the video, I will leave you all to dwell on this information. I want to bring hope to something everyone seems to want. We all want to see an underwater vault in the game. We want Fallout's version of Rapture from BioShock to be in this game at some point. Remember that crazy guy Deacon who's been stalking you since the start of the game? Seriously, if you haven't heard about that before, look up the theories on it. I'll try and link one for you. But the guy's been stalking you since before you unfroze. He even has a station set up outside of Vault 111. And you can see him throughout the game in various locations. He takes cosplaying to an extreme. But check out his dialogue options that can still be found in the game's file.
There.
Sounds like I have a stalker.
It's not like that. A lot of people know about you. A Chinese nuclear sub, an undersea vault, and a daring rescue. That ring any bells?
What was that? No, seriously, what was that?
An undersea vault and a daring rescue. That ring any bells?
No, not that. The important part.
That ring any bells?
Bells?
Any bells?
Did he say bells?
Any bells?
Ring any bells?
Any bells?
My God. They called me crazy. They said I was mispronouncing the word. But I feel as though I should be screaming jackal over and over again with excitement. Just kidding. Love you guys so much. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed yourself, hit that like button. If you want to see more in the future, do hit subscribe, and we'll see you guys again in the future.